On the docket for this edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports, I'm Chase Sr. The Birds making a couple of roster moves. Are the Eagles a running team or a passing team? Nick Sirianni saying some interesting things about that and the identity of his football team. And lastly, could the Eagles and Howie Roseman trade for Cooper Kupp? The Rams are shopping him, and a lot of Eagles fans are asking me, should Howie Roseman make that call and pull the trigger? Before we dive into all of this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're closing in on 88,000 subscribers. As you can see with the numbers here to my right, we're 54 people away. Shout out to Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Jeremiah Trotter Sr. If you want Eagles shows every single day, be sure to lock us in. This is the go-to spot for Eagles coverage right here on YouTube. Roster move number one for Philadelphia. The Eagles have released wide receiver Parris Campbell. We didn't see him a lot throughout training camp because he was injured. Because of that in the preseason or in the regular season. This year in 4 games played for this Eagles offense, he caught 6 passes for 30 yards. He signed an NFL free agency after spending last year with the New York Giants. And because of injuries and because the Eagles had other options that they were fans of at the wide receiver position, Campbell did not make the 53. And in a story that has since become viral, he was cut by Philadelphia. He said, "I'm not going back." He was telling his agent to try to field offers from elsewhere. And then Nick Sirianni gave him a call and said, "I know you're disappointed. You didn't make our roster. We really want you back on the practice squad." So Campbell decided to go back to the taxi club. And then after the injuries to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, he got elevated for a few games to the Eagles' active roster. On the practice squad right now for the Eagles, because they're probably letting Campbell go so that he can latch on with another team, Philadelphia has 3 wideouts currently. Danny Gray, former third-round pick, Kyle Phillips, and Marcus Rosemary Jack Saint. Now, why did Campbell get let go? For the reason that I mentioned, so that Philadelphia could give him that opportunity to potentially sign and have a role on another team. But with the returns of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, the Eagles clearly like their other options outside of their top 2. And for Campbell, when he was drafted by the Colts several years ago out of Ohio State, 4.3 40-yard dash, he was looked at as a burner. That long ball threat, the vertical threat, being able to stretch the field up and down, it's never translated. Despite his 4.3 speed, a career 9.1 yards per catch in the last 2 years with the Giants and the Eagles, 5.1. Just doesn't have the explosion. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. More roster moves here. Philadelphia signed defensive back Tariq Castro-Fields. All the Penn Staters out there very familiar with his game. That's where he played his college ball under James Franklin. They've added him to the practice squad and then placed wide receiver John Ross on the practice squad injured list. John Ross, like Parris Campbell, speedsters coming out. Ross even faster than Campbell. He set the 40-yard dash record at the time when he was coming out of Washington by running a 4.2 before Xavier Worthy beat him out back in Indianapolis in March. Both players have never been able to stay healthy. It's another unfortunate injury for Ross, who also with the Eagles in the preseason was a little bit banged up. As for Castro-Fields, I liked him when he was at Penn State. I was a fan of his game, lengthy, physical corner. I think Penn State does a great job, especially under James Franklin, of recruiting and developing players to become really high-level pros. Of course, as a program, they haven't won the big game. They haven't beaten Ohio State outside of, 2016. Can't really beat Michigan when Michigan is at its peak. But Penn State's done a great job of turning these prospects into really good pros. And Castro-Fields, I thought, was going to be another one of them. A 2022 6th-round pick by the San Francisco 49ers. So the Eagles have now signed multiple former 2022 draft picks by the Niners from that draft class. Castro-Fields didn't make the Niners 53. After he didn't make the initial 53, he signed with Washington this year in 2024. 9 special team snaps with the Carolina Panthers, all of them coming week 1, week 2. He was then released by Carolina on October 1st, and throughout his career, 102 career games, 1 start, backup, special teams, depth option at that corner spot on the practice squad if the Eagles were to suffer another injury at that cornerback position going into this game on Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. Topic number 2 that I want to talk about here. Are the Eagles a running team? Nick Sirianni was asked about that during his Tuesday appearance on Sports Radio 94.1 WIP in Philadelphia, and it was a proper time to ask the question because of how the Eagles have run it successfully this year, the strength of that offense built on that offensive line, and in particular what they did against the New York Giants on Sunday at MetLife Stadium, where Philadelphia as a team ran 45 times for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. The game was such a blowout that Will Shipley was starting to get some carries. The Eagles were led by these 3 horses right here. Saquon Barkley having one of the finest games of his career, silencing the city of New York and shutting up Giants fans who were booing him with 17 carries, 176 yards, and 10.4 yards per carry. Kenneth Gainwell popped. He had 13 totes for 56, average yards per carry at 4.3, and then Hurts running it 7 times for 22 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. One of those runs picking up that 4th down conversion, moving the chains, which led to a touchdown, a big moment in that ball game, and a good decision by head coach Nick Sirianni. And here's how that dialogue went during Sirianni's appearance on WIP. John Ritchie, former Eagles fullback, Nick, are we a running football team? Nick Sirianni responding by saying, damn right, Ritchie, yes! Sirianni said, anytime you can go over 200 yards rushing, you could say that for sure, but we have the ability to do both things. This part, very important. I'm going to expand on that coming up. And then Ike Reese said this, are the Eagles shifting towards a run-first identity? We may be finally rounding into what our identity as a team should be for the 2024 season and the Philadelphia Eagles that says we need to be led by Saquon Barkley. Now, I've talked about here on the show plenty, how can the Eagles fix their offense? How can they find a groove? Well, the offense should run through Saquon Barkley a little bit more. For the Eagles, in trying to find their identity, that's important to achieve. Being able to do both, run, pass, important. You don't want to be a one-dimensional offense, though. And remember, Nick Sirianni's first year, Eagles started off as a pass-happy team. They struggled. Then they adjusted. Sirianni gave up play-calling duties. Shane Steichen started calling the offense. Nick Sirianni helped change the identity of that team and found the strength of that team to fit his personnel, and the Eagles became a run-heavy squad. But what happened when they faced good teams and then when they got crushed by the Buccaneers in the playoffs? They had to throw it, and they couldn't. So there's a cap to what you can do if you're only a running team. Teams will just stack the box. And when the numbers aren't in your favor, very difficult to find success on the ground, right? You need to do both, run and throw it, in order to win a Super Bowl realistically. And that's what the identity of the Eagles should be. Should we give it to Saquon a lot? Did I say prior to the year that he can have a Christian McCaffrey-like impact, be the NFL Offensive Player of the Year? Yeah, Saquon can run for 1,500 to 2,000 all-purpose yards. He's on pace to doing that. But if you just solely become a running team, teams are going to defend you so differently. The run opens up the pass opens up the run. It's better to be a complementary football club. And you look at the last 10 Super Bowl champions. A lot of these teams were not run-heavy teams. And what's the consistent theme here? Great quarterback play. 2023, 2022, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl champion. 2021, Rams, Matthew Stafford. 2020 Buccaneers, Tom Brady. 2019 Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. 2018 Patriots, Tom Brady and the defense. 2017, Eagles dropped 40-plus points, and Nick Foles cooked Bill Belichick and that New England defense primarily by running the ball a little bit with LeGarrette Blount and Corey Clement, but mostly throwing the football and finding explosive plays through the air. 2016, Tom Brady, Patriots always known for those great defenses. 2015, the Broncos did run it a little bit because at that point, Peyton Manning's arm was fried, but that defense was an all-time, one of the best defenses ever, and then the Patriots once again there, led by Tom Brady. Now, before we get to this Cooper Kupp trade discussion here, stay tuned for that. Today's Philadelphia Eagles now, sponsored by our friends at PrizePicks, the #1 go-to spot for daily fantasy sports. That's why more than 10 million people are signed up. And they make daily fantasy sports so easy. It's easy and exciting. You pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you're guaranteed to win some big-time money. PrizePicks has handed out billions of dollars in awarded winnings, and you can be next, and I can help you pick up an easy victory here. Anthony Edwards, more than a half point. Opening night, Minnesota Timberwolves. He's a star. That's the PrizePicks special. 99% off. That's an easy win towards you getting a couple of wins here. How about Jason Tatum, less than 26.5 points against the New York Knicks? Jalen Brunson, more than 38.5 points, rebounds, and dimes against the Boston Celtics. So get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use that code CLNS for that deposit special on PrizePicks. Diana Rossini with this report a little bit earlier that the Rams have called multiple teams about trading former Super Bowl MVP wide receiver Cooper Kupp. The Rams have indicated a willingness to take on some of the 2024 salary and are seeking a second-round pick. When you think about Cooper Kupp at his peak, Cooper Kupp at his high, that player for a second-round pick sounds great. But Cooper Kupp's contract and his injury history is not great. In 2024, he has that cap hit of $29.7 million. That's why the Rams are thinking about eating that. There's also some chatter that they're looking to unload Matthew Stafford to the Minnesota Vikings in what would be a blockbuster in-season quarterback trade, which would certainly send a ripple effect across the NFC. In 2025, Cooper Kupp's cap hit, $29.7 million, and in 2026, $27.3. His games played by year. He will return against the Vikings on Thursday night, but in 2022, 9 games after that Triple Crown Offensive Player of the Year season. More on that in a moment. In 2023, 12 games played, and this year, he's only played 2. When on the field, highly productive. But since that incredible year, and he also had injury problems prior to that excellent season in 2021, the games played has been a problem. Because of that, the production has gone down. Now, the production per game on that type of scale has been really good, and he's still productive, but can he stay healthy at that cap hit? His medical's a big issue for me. And that 2021 season, those of you who love ball, embrace this, man. Cooper Kupp that year, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, and Offensive Player of the Year. So he was a Triple Crown winner in that regard, right? But he was also a true Triple Crown winner because he led the NFL in catches, in yards, and in touchdowns. And of course, that year, he was a 2021 All-Pro. But here we are on this Tuesday, October 22nd. Cooper Kupp can still play, but can he still healthy? Can he stay healthy, excuse me? Cooper Kupp, what a hard name to say multiple times. My read on this situation. You think about this Eagles offense, right? Nick Sirianni clearly wants to run the football based upon what we talked about a little bit earlier. Last year with Olamide Zaccheaus, Julio Jones, this year with Jahan Dotson, the Eagles never really involve the wide receiver 3. They never target that player because the offense primarily runs through Saquon Barkley running it, and then the pass game goes through A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and then that wide receiver 3. So, in a way, the wide receiver 3 on this Eagles team is weapon number 5, and Dotson's barely done anything. And if you trade for Kupp, you're paying him a lot of money, you worry about the injuries, and you're just admitting that that Dotson trade was an absolute flop. So I don't think this move makes sense for Philadelphia. I don't think they're going to make it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me on my social media pages asking me if perhaps Philadelphia could make this move. I just don't think it's one that's in the cards for Philadelphia as we approach that November 5th NFL trade deadline. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you so much for watching the show. The earlier show today talked about how Howie Roseman may have knocked it out of the park with these young defensive players who are really starting to find their stride. Thought it was a very interesting show, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already done so.